J. Rich.
Well, hello there, everybody. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, the GEF could really just focus on esports and stop there, but instead, it chooses to use its remarkable platform, nearly, for humanitarian good. And, rather brilliantly, I have a fabulous panel to help us through the next hour together. Now, I see a lot of technology companies in my day job at BBC Click, and I hope that more and more companies are realizing that it's possible to be profitable and help other people at the same time. And I'm going to learn some more with you about the innovations both in and out of the metaverse with a remarkable panel. Can we give them a round of applause, please, to start? Yes, thank you. What I'm going to do is ask each of you to please introduce yourselves and what you do, plus what area of innovation most interests you. And we're going to start with the GEF chair, Adrian Lismore, and then move across to other people and so on. So,
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
My name is Adrian. I have the privilege of sitting on the board of the Global Esports Federation. I also I'm the ambassador for the Commonwealth Sport Foundation, so it was my privilege to bring these two organizations together here today and be part of that journey together with our leadership of the, if you will. The thing that most interests me about innovation is how we're migrating from business technology solutions through esports into, I'd say, education. And I know that's a topic of conversation today, so with my colleagues. So that's that journey I've been privileged to be part of as an early stage investor, seed investor in many technology companies that are, and so I'm looking forward to this panel today. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And we're off. Angela, you're going to be next. Please could you introduce yourself, say what you do, and what area of innovation most interests you?
Thank you. So I'm one of the Coordination Commission co-chairs for the Global Esports Federation Games. My company, Sports Innovation Lab, actually studies innovation in sport. Prior to founding this company, I was a four-time Olympian in ice hockey. So I was a traditional sport athlete, if you will. But what fascinates me and what I study every single day at Sports Innovation Lab is looking at human behavior. Right? Innovation is about really understanding at the root how we're evolving, how we're, and specifically fan behavior, and how technology is the crux of a lot of that evolution. So really trying to understand how we engage differently with each other, with communities, and then applying the technologies that allow you to connect in a more meaningful way.
Brilliant. Wow, thanks very much, Angela. Next up, we have Victoria. Could you say who you are, what you do, and what area of innovation most interests you?
Sure. Moving beyond titles, CEO of Maincard, and I was largely a part of the inaugural GEF festival in Singapore last year. I'm also a lifelong gamer. I'm an esports host. I'm a content creator. And honestly, in my free time, I'm occasionally a competitive esports player as well. And like most gamers, I also like to flex my skills sometimes, which has led me to where I am today. I'm part of the team behind Maincard, and it is a social media platform for the billions of gamers out there. It's the first of its kind authenticated gamer resume, and more importantly, a community platform for community building for all types of gamers out there. I think what I'm really passionate about is obviously esports, but moving beyond the top tier esports players, there are so many gamers out there, and how do we answer their needs?
Brilliant, thank you very much. I think Kay is going to be up next. Kay, can you say who you are, what you do, and what part of innovation most interests you? I am aware, by the way, that for all of you, it's innovation in general that interests you. So it's a bit like asking you to choose your favorite meal or something, but we'll do it for now. What area most interests you?
Thanks very much. So I'm Kay from IBM. Many of you may know of IBM, 111 years at the forefront of technology change and innovation, hybrid cloud and AI being two areas that we are hugely invested in. We do a lot of work with physical sporting events, so Wimbledon, RFU, the Masters, and we're very excited to be able to take all of that technology learning and apply it in the esports arenas. I lead our media and entertainment business, and that is the portfolio of clients that are in this space, but also across broadcast publishing and advertising as well.
And what area are you particularly interested in?
It feels like choosing a favourite child, because I love technology so much, but personally for me as a mother, I think the gamification of education is definitely an area where I'm hugely excited at everything that's happened, but I know there's a huge amount more to come.
Yes, a lot of potential there, isn't there? Michael, over to you. Please say who you are, what you do, and what area of innovation most interests you.
Hello, my name is Michael. I'm the CEO of Refract Technologies. We're very happy to be here. Refract is a game and technology company. So we actually do develop a lot of games, the PC games, console games, mobile games. But there is also the technology segment of it that has garnered a lot of interest, especially recently. So when we started Refract back in 2018, the vision of the company was to extend human experience beyond reality. And that was obviously before metaverse became such a buzzword today. And with that, our theory is that the world's going to move a little bit step by step away from flat screens and a mouse and keyboard or a controller to one that is a little bit more what we call extended reality based. So extended reality is the umbrella term for augmented reality, mixed reality, and virtual reality, of course. So we developed this technology called Axis, which is an active XR interface system that allows, it's a full body tracking system that allows people to use their body as a game controller. So in terms of where I'm interested in innovation, I think anything that's moving towards the XR side, even in our games, we try to make sure that our games are really mainstream and fun, but we want to introduce more augmented reality, more mixed reality, more extended reality.
It's almost like the point where human meets technology is the bit that we're all really fascinated. No matter what area of innovation, it's that beautiful point. Adrian, can you explain a little to us what you think is going on as Web3 and commercial activities start to collide? I know, that's a really massive question, isn't it?
That's a huge question. Where do you stop and where do you start and where do you end? Wow. So as a federation, and as an eSport convening platform, it was our, I believe, I was one of the founders of the Global Esports Federation, and one of the things, in hindsight, if we could change and go back a little bit, I would drop the federation side of it, but it gave us something that everyone was able to convene around because it was a normal term used in sport. And we were trying to represent a sport organization. If I look at the technological changes that have occurred in different industries, so I'm an oil and gas guy originally, if you will. I was promoting renewable energies. We saw massive renewable focus on renewable energies. I'm an early stage investor in the EV world, started an EV technology firm, EV charging station in the US, EV car rental company, partnered with Hertz. So I got very early into that stage of technology. What I saw in esports was the same passion and change and rapid change occurring across that technological platform. So we see business, blockchain. People talk about blockchain. We see democratization around that. We were early adopters of blockchain by partnering with one of our supporters, Flare Networks. People asked, why did you do that, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what we saw was the gaming industry moving into a professional sporting organization and bodies controlled by the gaming companies because the IP sits at the gaming companies. That democratization, effectively by partnering with the technology firms that are shaping that, we felt that we could learn And so we did that. We moved forward, and we now see Web3. People talk about Web3 in the metaverse. Well, we're at the very start of that journey. I don't think anyone really knows where we're actually going to end up. But you know, if I could paint a picture, I would say we're going to have much more interactivity using VR and AR. The AI learning process that we've seen in businesses will be pushed through using blockchain technologies. So it's not necessarily about crypto and NFTs, et cetera, although that's certainly a part of the journey. I think that technology will evolve, and we will see it in sports.
Brilliant. Thank you for a very concise summary of a massive, massive subject. Angela, what do you think can persuade more businesses, tech companies, educational professionals outside of esports to work with esports?
Yeah, great question. Traditional sports, in my opinion, and I spent 8 years on the IOC, by the way, so I've studied it. We've traditionally been very comfortable with revenue streams that are passive. Mm-hmm. You buy a ticket, you sit in your seat, you turn on the TV, you know, very traditional ways to garner revenue. Esports has come on, and why everyone's obsessed with like esports and trying to study it is it started in a digital format. It started in an interactive format. And so I think esports has an enormous opportunity if it leans into the fact that it's where the puck is headed. I can say that because I'm a hockey player. As I mentioned before, my company, Sports Innovation Lab, studies this fluid fan, we call it. And the fluid fan wants personalization. They want interaction. They want more than what traditional sports is offering. And believe me, there's a lot of brands and properties out there that are leaning more towards providing those more interactive, engaging experiences. But I think esports, and for the brands that want to lean in, you're sitting on a different kind of audience, a different kind of fan, a different community. We say that a lot. A lot of the work we do is around this. We call it the community-based monetization model. So rather than saying we're just going to sell tickets and sponsorship and linear rights, it's saying like, where are your communities aggregating? And how is technology enabling those communities? And that, again, I think, versus, hey, let's slap a logo, which we know the gaming community, the esports community doesn't like, bring your capability to the table. And I think that's where there's a big opportunity for partners to think about esports in a different way than traditional sports, to say, these people are more digitally savvy. They're more likely, and you're seeing now partnerships in crypto and banking and betting, and again, these more digital communities where, again, fan behavior, human behavior might be different than the traditional sports fan. So a lot packed in there, but I think there's a big opportunity if you frame the opportunity in actually how these fans are different and how they're leaning into technology.
It's almost like the audience could be thought of as another participant.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I heard a lot earlier, it's like agency. Again, traditional sports are like, these fans want agency. They want to vote. They want to participate, and they're limited right now. Whereas esports has that natural platform built in. And again, we keep hearing this conversation of what can traditional sports learn from esports. That's where I think you lean into how you're different and better, and where traditional sports is trying to catch up, versus saying, oh, our audiences are, you know, we don't have the big, we're the first, you know, we're early. Lean into where you have the competitive advantage.
That's brilliant, thank you. Victoria, I noticed you nodding along there, so I want to hear your overview on esports and business interacting better than they do already. The idea of the audience as a participant and wanting more than just a logo slapped on something. It feels like you understand the audience a lot more than maybe some traditional outlets.
Yeah, Angela brought up so many good points. That's just why I was nodding vigorously. You know, it's really exciting to be part of, we're part of cultivating the new generation of gamers and viewers. You know, we're here today on this panel, the CEC for CEC, the very first of its kind, and it says a lot about how far we've come, but also says a lot about how far we have to go. So I think it's really up to us to give the tools to enable and the building blocks to enable the youths especially to be able to track historical data, to be able to connect with each other. I think that's a large part of the viewing audience experience these days, is being able to connect with each other and to connect with the players themselves. To also, as an individual player or gamer, be able to track your own progress. You know, the youth these days are also, you know, they're just smarter. A lot of our companies are based on data-driven decision-making, but honestly, the kids these days have grown up with it every day of their lives, and social media, the engagement with the followers, with likes, with looking at their in-game KDA, looking at their global rank statistic. So it's, I think for us as technology platforms or, you know, companies, we need to give them these tools to kind of forge their own destiny in the industry in the future. Because if you think about it, esports, you know, it wasn't created by any of us here, anyone out here, no individual entity. It was because people had access to gaming that has reached a point, you know, in progression, technology-wise, where they supported it and pushed it forward, and you know, this is why we are where we are today. So I think it's all about empowering them with these tools and keeping up with the trends.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for how the technology has almost shaped our experience of gaming. The ability to connect and stream live has obviously had a massive influence. And once you could do that, people were allowing all kinds of things to be watched live. So that's brilliant thought. Thank you so much. Michael, I'm going to go to you. And I should mention, audience, it's totally worth seeing Refract at the ICC Innovation Showcase while you get your refreshments soon. I would like you to tell us more about the Media Suite, because it's a dark room that you have to seek out. It's like a weird side quest that you've got to know where it is, but it's totally worth going to. Tell us a little bit about what's inside.
Right, so like I said before, we have developed a technology called Axis. We've also developed a game that comes to showcase the capability of Axis. It's called Free Striker. And for the gamers out there, it's basically a first-person fighting game where you are using your body to compete against another player. So you actually have full body control over your avatar as you fight. So it's very similar to sparring, but without actually being punched in the face or kicked in the stomach. So we've had quite a few people try it already so far. A lot of them didn't quite expect the amount of physical activity that actually generated. So a lot of them are actually athletes, and they got pretty tired as well. So we're quite happy with that. We would like to invite people during the lunch break later between 1 to 2. We're having a micro tournament, and we've invited Taekwondo athletes. They're actually professional world-class athletes, and they're going to be competing against each other. And interestingly, we have also a female versus male kind of dynamic, because in the virtual space, you don't have that kind of limitation. So please do come by. Yeah.
I have a quick question, actually. Who's been coming out on top, the martial artists or the gamers?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
When you've been doing the matches, I would imagine that if you're a martial artist, you have a certain set of skills, right? But somebody who is an esports athlete is going to have a different set of skills, basically like reflexes or different physical and mental characteristics. So have you noticed anything so far in your data as to who's winning?
So 100%. If you are an accomplished martial artist, you will have an edge over the layperson. Similar to how if you're a professional Valorant competitor versus somebody from not from that world, they're going to get trashed in the game, right? But having said that, it's an equalizer in the virtual space. You get to experience what it's like, maybe going against Olympic level athlete just in a virtual space, so you're safe. But I do want to add that when we developed this, we wanted to bridge the gap between gaming and activity, right? Physical activity. Not just because we see that the world's moving towards a more XR-based human-computer interface, but we wanted to make sure that you can be even more immersed in the experience of gaming or interactive entertainment.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to being virtually knocked out in a few minutes' time. Okay, thank you, Michael. Kay, thanks for waiting. I know that IBM spend a lot of time trying to predict future trends and where business needs to be ready. In fact, that is a very difficult bet, and I would love to know where IBM thinks the direction of esports is going.
Well, that's a big question. Thanks for
I
that
like
one.
big questions.
No, absolutely. So I think we've heard a lot of that, and actually the earlier panels talked a little bit about how, you know, the growth in esports is absolutely phenomenal, and also the participation, the inclusiveness, the bringing in younger generations is also equally incredible. So, and then how can technology help with that? Everything from the work we're all doing on the stage, but also the future technologies like the quantums and the connectivity that was brought up earlier as well. So we do a lot of work with the global telecommunication companies, that bringing the world connectedness to everybody is also continuing the importance. I think the only other dimension I would add is the importance of not just the player and the gamer experience, but the importance of talent and encouraging that talent to continue to bring the creativity into the gaming world is of utmost importance to all of us. So building the right communities, the right companies that they want to come and work with, and the synergies between gaming and development of gaming and our world of technology is such that they're very interchangeable. So it's that focus on talent as well continuing its importance.
I guess where AI is at the moment is creativity. It's beginning to sort of understand how to do it. If anyone's seen the AI pictures that are being built by DALL-E, but there still requires the human seed of ingenuity to make anything creative.
Yeah. I think the seed of ingenuity, but also the ethical design. So making sure that you're embedding the ethical way to use data for good is also incredibly important.
Anyone that's interested in the ethics of AI would enjoy listening to Stuart Russell, who is a California professor. And he's got some really interesting views on it. Like, if you build a true sort of general intelligence, the first thing it's going to do is work out how to disable its off switch. And then where do you go from there? Okay, let's talk a little bit about esports and education partnerships. And Adrian, I'm going to start with you, because partnerships, this is one of the things that the GEF is obviously very good at. Where do we stand? Where do you think we can evolve?
Certainly, with the help of folks around this panel, we're working together to create an environment that embodies our principles: fair play, equality, inclusion, and around that, we're closely aligned with IBM's core philosophies and goals and objectives in the space. And so what we see is an opportunity to fill a void that exists today about creating safe spaces where people can come together, and parents and supervisors and education authorities can feel comfortable that their athletes, their students are in a safe space. They are playing and engaging with people who they think they are playing and engaging with. We think we are on that journey to create an academy, the Global Esports Academy, which we rolled out across the globe with our founding circle of countries in through their education programs, which includes the UK. And around that, we will create metrics about statistics, about how a player views themselves, how they're viewed by their peers, how they rank, and allow them a platform and a voice in the technology space beyond simply sort of shouting, "I'm the number one." You know, here's my statistics, here's my play. I've been fairly treated. So that's where we see an opportunity and a void that we are stepping into.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Victoria, I'm going to briefly come to you, actually. How come you're so passionate about esports? You mentioned that you play. I'd just love to know more about this.
I think growing up, I was involved in a lot of sports in general, but not team sports, funnily enough, more gymnastics, taekwondo, solo kind of sports. I think I was just fortunate to get into gaming in the first place, that my parents let me play Mortal Kombat, and that my mom let me have a PC where I played Warcraft 3 and then, you know, MMORPGs, and kind of just getting exposed to this world. I think today I realize, especially, you know, COVID isn't what pushed gaming and esports into the limelight. It was already growing anyway, but it really limelight how connected esports, you know, brings the entire world together. I was playing with people across the globe. I have friends I've made from esports, from casters to just random people in game. So I think there's a real beauty to it. And I also do want to emphasize too, and even like tying back to education, it's not just, there isn't just esports out there. Esports is such a small percentage of the big world of gaming, and like in traditional sports, I was, you know, in gymnastics, for example, and not a team sport, you can compete in these solo player games. There are achievements that you can unlock and progress in that showcase your creativity, leadership skills, or strategic thinking. I know you were mentioning like the Rubik's Cube even. There's a lot that happens just by engaging with that one, I don't know if I should call it a game, but that one device. So I think there's just so much to esports, and I'm just naturally very excited about it, especially when you talk about my favorite titles. I will go on forever, and that will be a whole nother panel.
Everyone here is very happy to listen to you chat. And you mentioned there the kind of sport on your own versus sport in a team. It feels like a very natural thing to kind of come over to you, because the idea of team sports in an esport context and maintaining that social coherence, I guess, at the same time as being able to use it in sort of educational purposes. This is a very strange question, I guess, but it's how do we start looking at esports and education as a one whole, and what do you think could be learned from the social sports that you play?
Well, you know, I'm a huge advocate for boys and girls having opportunity to play sports. You learn so much about yourself, whether it's individually or collectively. I think collectively, coming from a team sport, you know, you learn about teamwork, you learn about setting goals and succeeding together and failing together, and all these great aspects that you take into life. Mm-hmm. Sport, to me, is a platform for life, a platform for education. And you do it in a safe environment, because you fail, who cares? It's sport. I mean, at the end of the day, you take that into business. One of the reasons I believe I'm successful in business is because of my sporting background. Mm. So then you take that into esports, and to your point, the global gaming community is infinitely bigger than the esports community, but it's the same skills of working together. It's the same exact application of, you know, knowing what role you play on that team, understanding when you're the star forward versus, you know, the bench warmer, knowing, you know, how do we debrief when we lost that game and learn and do it better the next time and pick yourself up. All these, again, the intangible skills that you learn in sports. It's the same thing in esports. For me, it's these life lessons, again, that that people that don't play sports, I think, miss out on. Mm. And you know, 95% of Fortune 500 female CEOs, by the way, played sports. So giving boys and girls opportunity to play sports, and that includes esports, it's those life skills that I think I'm so passionate about esports, and the accessibility and, again, the global nature of the world that we're all in.
That's a fascinating statistic. I mean, it's easy to see how much you can learn in terms of physical and emotional resilience. You're sort of dealing with failure and success, both of which can be fleeting in sport, and I think in esports, obviously, as well. So thank you very much for that. In an earlier panel, I talked about how I feel I learn much more easily through play. We're talking about coordination and the ability to sort of learn things. It seems like a very easy win to use esports as part of education and learning. It's like almost do we need to convince people that esports is part of a balanced diet? Like, you can read a paper book and enjoy that. We're not saying don't do one thing and do the other. It does feel like we're almost trying to help people into using esports and education together. Kay, I know that you've got some interesting thoughts on this.
So I actually think that the increasing use of technology in education is one that we're well on the journey now. And I think that has, in the lockdown times, been exacerbated. And that's a good thing. I think from my perspective, I have twins. They absolutely love gaming. And anything that I can do to bring their passion for technology into that education space helps them learn, helps them retain knowledge. And I agree, the team camaraderie of everything they're doing is life skill building. So I'm absolutely a big advocate of it. I do still hear some resistance in some of the educational establishments that want to limit the time. And I think it is part of that balance that you talked about. It's having that combination in a healthy way that's tracking their personal well-being, their mental well-being, but in something that's fun. Let's bring the fun back.
Absolutely. And for those of you interested in the mental and physical health of players, we've got Dr. Melita Moore on a panel this afternoon, and she's going to be awesome. Thank you. Michael, I want to hear a little more from you. How do you persuade people outside of the industry that immersive tech is worth spending time on?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Thank you.
How do we get people interested in immersive tech? I think the reality might be slightly, from my perspective, slightly different from that. I think immersive tech is an inevitable thing that will happen. Quite similar to, I'm an avid gamer. I'm pretty into gaming, and I've been watching esports for a very long time. So back in the days of StarCraft 1 and 2, and even the fighting games back then, and even then, when you're an esports enthusiast, this is like years or decades ago, there is a feeling that esports being mainstream and huge is an inevitability, right? So similar to immersive tech, I think all the biggest tech companies in the world are already signaling that they're already moving towards immersive tech. So if you look at Meta, you look at IBM, you look at Microsoft, all of them are either acquiring, developing tech, doing a lot of, and when you go into immersive tech, you need to do a lot of deep learning, machine learning. That's something that we're into as well. So it's gonna happen, and I think you have some kind of early mover advantage if you kind of adopt it or get involved really early. So that's my perspective on that, yeah.
Can I jump into a point that Kay mentioned, which was, and you asked about, is esports and are we having to force it into education rather than being invited? And I would say it's a real, it depends on who you're talking to. You're talking to, the UK, you're talking to New Zealand, which are registered sports bodies. You have an open door, but it's still a difficult door to push through because there are naysayers all the way along. Oh, gaming is about individual players. It's about people staying in their rooms. It's about not socializing. You hear all of these things from prominent people until they get their eyes opened. And things like the Commonwealth Esports Championship is an opportunity to open people's eyes, to normalize gaming as a sport. You look at places in, we have the privilege of working with federations around the globe, but the challenges in Africa, the challenges in some parts of the world about normalizing gaming and esports is very different than in the, sort of the developed nations. So, this opportunity and the athletes here today that are going to be competing tomorrow and on Sunday, they are leading the way for and are pioneers for people in countries that are pointing to this and saying, look, that's what we aspire to.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant, thank you. In fact, whilst we've got you, I did have a question for you actually about how partnerships work in practice. What things should both businesses and maybe esports people bear in mind before entering into a partnership? I guess this would also apply to people in education? Maybe that's what people are looking for, is that reassurance. But what do you think is going on? What do you think
Everyone is fearful about partnership when you go into it, whether it's in your daily life, whether it's marriage, whether it's etc. It's like that uncertainty. You sort of feel that it's right. You sort of know that there's a pathway forward, but you're not sure. The Commonwealth Games Federation took the opportunity to pilot the Commonwealth Esports Championship. That was a risk on both sides of the organizations. That is a true partnership. We see the same thing with the virtual series. These partnerships, the risk is that it will fail. And for a large organization, an organization with a high degree of reliance on their credibility, that's a big risk to take. We're seeing partnerships with the founding circles of the Olympics movement. There's engagement, the Pan Americans, the Europeans, the Asians, where there's esports has been integrated into the Olympic model. There's a pathway there, but we're not sure what it is together. And so I say take that step, and a true partnership is being able to sit back a year later or 2 years later and say, okay, we kind of failed at that, and how can we fix it? Or, yay, that's a high five. Let's move this on.
Brilliant, thank you. Angela, I think what would be quite interesting, considering what you've spoken about earlier, is talking about how we can attract a young and diverse selection of competitors into esports. You mentioned earlier most female CEOs have been almost self-selected by going into sport first, and so they've got that mindset. So how do we invite and include people who have a less traditional way of getting up the ladder?
Yeah, it's a tricky question, and we were talking backstage. Traditional sports now is playing catch up. They're trying to right the prior wrongs, if you will. Esports is in its infant stages, so I think esports really has an opportunity to get out in front of, your quote-unquote problems, to make sure that it's inclusive, that it's diverse, that it's a welcoming space, that it really can reach the scope and scale and potential that we all see it. There isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, in my opinion. If I had to give one piece of advice, it starts at the leadership level. It's making sure the leaders in your organization look and are diverse, that they don't just have a seat at the table, they have a voice at the table. Mm-hmm. Those are two very different things. You don't just check the box to have, your quote-unquote woman, you're really making sure everyone around the table is free to speak. Because again, it comes back to I think you can approach it from it's the right thing to do, and we all want to do the right thing, but you could also make a lot of money. I'm just going to say it. Mm-hmm. This market is ripe for that opportunity, and coming from, again, the fan perspective, we always say, do you look like your fan base? Just start there. Does your leadership look like your fan base? And if it doesn't reflect your fan base, you're not going to truly understand the needs of your gamers, the needs of your fans, the needs of the community you're hoping to serve. So again, there's a lot of things we could spend all day talking about. How do you make sure esports really lives up to the values that I know Jeff has committed to? But I think the first thing is just take a good look at your leadership team, because those are the people with the keys, the pockets, really the strategy at the end of the day to make sure that this world is inclusive and lives up to its potential, both from the right thing to do and from a financial perspective.
I think I remember reading somewhere diversity in a board has a direct and positive impact on profits.
Yeah, there's been countless studies that say diversity absolutely drives shareholder value. So if you just want to come at it from, we want to go after this market, make sure your board is diverse. And again, back to traditional sports, which is now trying to add more diverse members, I think esports can get in front of it. And when we talk about the women's tournament as an example, make sure that's invested in. Mm-hmm. We've done a tremendous amount of research around the market opportunity for women's sports called the Fan Project. And if you look at that research, these fans are more digitally savvy. they are spending more money. Literally, they're spending more money in charities. I mean, we looked at like where their wallets go. It's an avid fan base that wants to do, and so again, creating avenues for both men and women to consume and participate in women's esports. I think I'm super passionate about, because again, it's not just the right thing to do. You can make good money off of it. I always take it from those two sides.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, we've talked about business a lot. We've talked about education. So I want to touch briefly on technology. And Michael, I want to pick up on a conversation we were having in the green room about the physical experience of playing. And I talked about when I play the piano, and you play a real piano with hammers and strings, and you feel the mechanics. And then if you play a digital piano, you're hitting something else. You've got dampers, you've got probably some kind of piezoelectric transducer or something down there. It gives you a different feel. You adapt your playing to match it. And I think with technology, lowering latency, faster response times, better quality monitors, where do you think we are going to go from here with extended reality, where you're going to physically start feeling things? Do you think, for example, that there's a market for a martial arts simulator where you can get physically hurt more?
That's a very interesting question, because that's exactly the space we're looking at, right? So you mentioned, you're a musician, and the touch matters on the piano, right? You want to get that feedback, right? So what we are doing in gaming, right, as well as in tech, with not just access, even down to doing let's say a mobile game or a console game, we want it's a two-way conversation between us and the computer. So you are inputting your data to the computer, right, through your mouse and keyboard, your controller, and then you're getting data feedback, right? That's how the loop goes. So we're very interested in this space and where it will go next. So in terms of, excuse me, in terms of how that could actually change the way people interact with computers and with other people through computers, I think that's a huge, we're at a very interesting point right now, where VR is getting it's expanding and growing very quickly, and more people are adapting to that. You mentioned the right thing about latency and all the tech, the infrastructural tech around that. So we're moving at a pretty good pace, I think, and I think what businesses ought to think about also is to just kind of get involved, be part of the conversation. Yeah.
It's a really interesting area. I'm sure we could chat about this for ages, but I'm aware of the time. So I'm going to just ask a few more questions. First of all, Kay, I just wanted to touch upon, you said before you're mother of twins. Goodness, that's already a lot of work. And you obviously allow them to go online in moderated environments. Are there ways, creative ways, that we can approach safeguarding children, and in fact anybody who doesn't want to take part in unmoderated conversation? I guess this is an ethical, technical question, all mixed together.
It is, and I think talking backstage, it's one that all of us are very interested in and don't have all the answers, and that's the power of the ecosystem and all the different thinking to come together. In terms of creativity, I think it's listening, really. So I think, Angela, you were talking about, does the leadership team look like your audiences? I think for us, we use techniques that does so much research into the use cases, the type of people that we're trying to work with. And there's no difference between doing that from a commercial organisation to a child, in my view. So give them a voice, listen to them. That's the power of community. That's the power of the massive growth even in esports is because of the power of the players that have driven it. And I think there is no easy answer, but it's one we're passionately looking at. I know all my panelists are also passionately looking at, and watch this space is all I say.
I'm just thinking, if I put my 6-year-old in charge of, for example, cooking, it would be ice cream all the time. So I guess we have some responsibility to make things a little bit more balanced. But thank you very much. Okay, everyone, there's some brilliant jumping off points there for future exploration. Thank you, panelists. I'm going to ask you, because it does feel like we're always starting a conversation at the end of a panel, doesn't it? So while wrapping up, I like to ask each panelist a brief answer, please, to one of two questions, and you can answer one or both of them. And today's end questions for this panel is, what do you need help with, or what are you looking forward to? So that's what would you like help with, or, and what are you looking forward to? And Kay, I'm going to start with you.
So I'm going to go with the what do we need help in. So IBM's gone through a number of transformations, and we are in a space where we are much more humble than you may have known us to be, and we are much more open to listening about what it is that you all want from the likes of IBM, the technology innovation that we invest in, and how you embed that technology into everyone's businesses. So please come and tell me your point of view. I want to hear it. We want to kind of embed your thinking into the way that we design technology solutions going forward, and for the good of the world, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much. Michael, apart from what sounds like you're building a holodeck, but as well as that, what do you need help with, and what are you looking forward to?
I'm going to talk about what I'm looking forward to, or what I'm really excited about. The fact that the Global Esports Federation has brought esports into a partnership with the Commonwealth Games here in Birmingham is something that's very exciting, and something that I've been looking forward to my entire gamer life, right? This is a great step. And I think when we talk about partnerships and education, I really want to thank Mr. Paul Foster as well as Adrian when we started very early days talking about the Global Esports Federation. My perspective is that because I came from a marketing and branding background, there are a lot of big brands, there are a lot of big companies that really want to get engaged in the esports space because they understand the gaming is exploding. Esports is going crazy, right? And the very interesting thing here is that within the demographics, right, of esports and gaming is very much what a lot of brands and a lot of companies have their target audience in, right? You have your people between 25 to mid-30s, or at this point 40s, who are avid gamers or esports enthusiasts, and they generally don't take very well to advertising or having brands like slapped on and shown it to you. But they are very avid, enthusiastic fans of their game and their esport. So if they see a brand support their game and their esport, they take it very well. So those brands that have gotten involved in the esports scene early on has done very well for themselves in this space. So what I'm, sorry if I'm taking a bit longer, but
no, it's fine.
I think what the Global Esports Federation is doing a great job with is they want to bring legitimacy, credibility, and prestige to esports, right? Not that it wasn't there before, but it's a form of education, right? You want to let people who don't understand this space really understand this space, and I think the steps that the GF has taken since we started a couple years ago till now has been fantastic. 180 member federations, I think, and all sorts of events around the world. So fantastic. That's what I'm really excited about, and I can't wait to see what's next. Yeah.
I love that. We do like to be sold to well, I think. I think people accept that advertisers do have a role to play because they can support creativity, they can support art, and if it's done in a way that's sensitive to the environment, then it's received quite well. But if it's done with the same fervor that do you remember everybody, writing an app? And it was just people going crazy, putting things in the App Store. And I think it was the people who didn't quite understand, going, I'm going to make an app. I don't know how to code. I don't know what my idea is. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I'm going to make an app. And I guess it's a job in itself to try and educate people that, no, you don't just slap your logo on something. You need to engage in a more creative way. So it's a great point. Well made. Thank you very much. OK, Victoria, over to you. Feel free to answer one or both of the questions. What would you like help with? And or what are you looking forward to?
I think we know Gen Z and gamers are a very skeptical bunch of people, and they are a very hard group to win over, or I should say us. But once we're won over, I feel that there's a loyalty there, there's support, it almost becomes like family. I hope this changes over time, and I think this can happen through a number of ways. Inclusion, as you were talking about, making sure a lot of your core team members are passionate about gaming. So what I guess I would always want help with is, especially our platform, we're about connecting people, building communities, but we want to do it in the most authentic way possible and not, put a slap on regulations. I mean, I don't know if there are any gamers out there, but to be honest, I know how things have always been done this way, but it doesn't mean it's always been right. But I want to have those conversations with anyone and solve this and correct things so that we can have a better future for esports. And I guess one other thing I would want to add is if you do want to get into the space, or you are in the space and have never really played a game before, maybe your kids play, just pick it up and try it. Just give it a go and understand why it's so big. I mean, if you're looking at the trend but not, it's right there in front of you. Just give it a go and try to get into the psyche of it. And I think that will also help lower that, you know, that wall between gamers and people who are trying to elevate the industry.
Brilliant, thank you. Again, very well put. All right then, it's your turn. What could you help with, or sorry, what would you like help with, and what are you most looking forward to?
So personally, we're obsessed with the fan, as I've talked about, the fluid fan. We're looking for data sources of the fan, so we can analyze those sources. And a lot of this community sits on data, I mean, troves of it, relative to traditional sports. So we're always looking for partners that want help analyzing their data, and maybe there's some way we could collaborate from a partnership perspective. So that's the personal ask. What I'm looking forward to are the next 2 days here. This tournament here, Katie Sadler, the CEO, and the partnership that you know, Paul and Katie were able to put together. I'm just so proud that we're able to be on this beautiful stage. And selfishly, as the COCOM chair, Istanbul later this year, so the Jeff Games later in Istanbul. So if you haven't checked it out, it's only a few months away.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Well then, Adrian, you have the opportunity to tell us, what would you like help with? What are you most looking forward to? I mean, obviously you're going to be looking forward to the rest of this weekend, but as well as that, the future.
Yeah, we need help as an entity. We need engagement. We need support. We're supported by our commissions, which are all volunteers. And so I would encourage you to support us. Come along, volunteer, be part of this growth machine. That's sort of on the support side of the organization. As we grow, we're learning, we're making mistakes. Be part of that journey with us. We're going to, after these fabulous games, we're going to Istanbul in December for country against country, and so we're looking forward to that journey as well. In terms of picking up on Michael's comment about sponsors and technology and knowing how to engage in terms of data, etc. It's easy for sponsors. You know, what I'm looking forward to is I'm privileged to sit in a seat where I see amazing technologies around me being presented, being formed, being shaped, and we can lend a voice to some of those where they align with our interest. And so we continue to do that. Today, or tomorrow actually, people will come to the event. They'll be given an opportunity to engage with one of our new partners, a company called Pivotal, which is basically going to take you into the metaverse for us Neanderthals, and take you across the Web 2, Web 3 interface in a seamless transition. It includes game player cards. The player cards, which are very traditional in some sports, we're going to produce that online in a meta closet. And so we're going to give you an opportunity to experience the metaverse. Whether it's a success or not, it's an opportunity to learn something new and fresh. So that's what I'm excited about.
Brilliant, thank you very much. My goodness, so much here. Some brilliant things. My goodness, well, panel, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to briefly explain what's coming up for the rest of the day. In a few minutes, you're going to be invited to eat and absorb new innovations in esports at the same time, just a few steps outside of this room, courtesy of Refract Technologies. And they're also supporting the Innovation Break, an opportunity to enjoy refreshments in the company of some fascinating innovation. I love that idea. You can sort of feed your mind and your body at the same time. And I'm going to pop in to explore some of the new tech on display. And please be back here. I think we're running 15 minutes later than the schedule, so the next panel is going to start at 2:15, and that panel is absolutely worth watching. Everybody is welcome, and enjoy your innovation break, and thank you very much to our panelists. Thank you.